Welcome to week 42. Training and food goes hand in hand, whether it's eating for performance or dieting for losing weight. Previously this year, I did an honest diet video where I shared some of my thoughts on fueling for CrossFit and examples of what I eat in a day. In connection to that, I got motivated to become as serious with my food intake as I am with my training. And I actually took a longer period of time where I tracked my food and counted calories, aiming for around 2,800 or 3,000 calories a day, hoping for some weight gain and more energy in training. But I am of the opinion that tracking food takes a lot of energy. Energy that instead could be put on cooking nicer food or even on training. So for me, the tracking resulted in more boring food and also the feeling of having another task hanging over me. Tracking your food can of course be beneficial or even crucial, depending on how much knowledge you have on nutrition and what your goals are. And if you never have counted calories or macros, it can be a good idea just to get a perception of what you can or even should eat a lot of, and perhaps where you should be a bit more restricted. However, in my case, the tracking didn't last very long. And when summer and vacation came, I figured I just could enjoy food, try to eat a lot and not stress about it. But later, when I overstrained my shoulders, I subconsciously made small adjustments to my diet due to the adapted training. Hence, this week's video, why you shouldn't eat less when you're injured. It's easy to think that the reduced intensity that an injury can result in should be equal to a reduction in food intake. But healing an injury takes a lot of energy. And just like a calorie deficit puts a lot of stress on the body, which increases the risk of injury, eating too little when injured can make the recovery time even longer just because the body has to prioritize the energy available. Whether you want to make huge gains or recover quickly from an injury, an adequate calorie intake is the most important factor. There will always be people on the internet who try to make you believe that a certain split of macros is necessary for reaching your goals, or even that certain foods has a healing effect. But making sure that you eat enough is definitely the base of the pyramid. And eating enough is almost always equal to hitting the right amount of protein, at least if you eat a versatile diet. If you are a vegan or vegetarian, it's perhaps more important to track your protein intake. A good guideline is 2 to 2.3 grams of protein per kilogram body weight per day, at least if you're serious about muscle growth. Then there are twisted thoughts on the splits of carbohydrates and fats. And that's what was the biggest stressor for me during the period when I tracked my food intake. Generally, there's a high-carb, low-fat diet that many athletes favor, while there has been a trend the last decades among the average population to be a bit scared of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are necessary for performance, not least when it comes to endurance training, but also for optimal and faster recovery. However, fats should not be underestimated, since they are essential for normal hormone production. I believe that it's slightly individual how the split between these two should look to be optimal, and that everyone should test different ratios to see what works best for oneself. In my case, the focus right now should be just to eat a lot and not really worry about the details. Calorie intake over macros. And then the goals can vary or change in the future. The subconscious decisions that I made during this period of injury was, for instance, quitting with the carbohydrate supplementation I took during training sessions. This was bad mostly because of the reason that it was a habit that I would have benefited from keeping. I also ate a whole lot less snacks or treats, just because I felt that my training wasn't as tough as normal. Although I still trained 6 times a week. And if you know CrossFit, you know that the biggest advantage is that there's always something you can train on, even if you're limited in some way. Training CrossFit is equal to putting high physical demands on your body, and your body needs a lot of energy to handle it. Eating less on a rest day will risk a deficit, which can be hard to catch up on training days, when time is limited and energy consumption is high. And eating too little over a longer period of time is of course even worse. So lately for me, it's been all about finding joy in cooking and motivation for food prepping. It's actually the third week in a row now that I've managed to food prep for the entire week. Big deal for me, keeping it real. And also just becoming better overall at eating more and not being influenced by people around me. Remember that energy demands are individual and depend very much on how active you are in your everyday life, but also on gender, size, and muscle mass. My latest hack or obsession is peanut butter jelly sandwiches as a pre-workout meal. Perhaps a classic if you're American, but not very common here in Sweden. Especially if I'm training in the morning or early in the day, energy-dense food is the key to success. And like you know, if you've seen my latest YouTube short, I always bring overnight oats with me for breakfast at work. I always eat cooked food 2 times a day, both for lunch and dinner, and I'm bringing the treats back. Please comment down below if you are interested in recipes or more detailed food inspiration. The flare-up in my shoulders became less acute real quick, and there has been a couple of weeks now where I've felt that the shoulders are fully recovered. But I've continued to train by feels, being a bit scared to exceed the volume that my shoulders can handle. But last week I finally got a new training program, so now I feel that I'm back on track and on the right path of becoming the best I possibly can. Especially if I keep up the good work with fueling properly for training. From here it goes quick to the 2025 season. Hopefully I can share a full week with training with you guys real soon. Until then, remember that consistency is key to all worthwhile things in life, not least when it comes to training, but also nutrition. See you next week.